In the last chapter, we looked at methods that do not return anything. And in chapter 6, we look at methods where something is returned. So I'm not going to go over this chapter a whole lot. I'm going to show a bunch of examples that demonstrate these concepts. So I'd rather do it by example. Along the way, I want us to learn some new elements of a graphical user interface. Last time, we looked at the JText field, where you would have your two text fields. You retrieve the values from them by doing a get text, then double dot parse double to change them to a double, and you get those values in, do some kind of calculation, then you write it back out by doing a set text. So get text gets the data, set text sets it, and then you do string dot value of to convert it to a string, so you can write it out to the text field. Let's see. Let's start a new project. I'll do file, new project, Java Maven, Java application. And I'm going to show the quadratic formula. Click finish. I need to close some of these. And I'll come down here in my quadratic formula, right click on it, choose new, and choose the J-frame form. And I could give that a name, main form. Okay, so I'm going to be bringing in three numbers. So I'm going to drop this label on here, this label on here, this label on here. I need three text fields. There we go. And I need a button that'll click. And then I need to return my answers. Now, this time, I'm going to return them into a label. Label actually makes more sense because we don't want the person to be able to change the value of it. Huh, can't get past go by this past button. I'll align it on the right side. Okay, so I'm gonna come down here and click with my left mouse button and drag, and we'll draw a rectangle and select those. Just like last time, I'll make these bigger. So I come over here to my font and expand that, and I want to set it to 18, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna right click on this one. I left click first to select it. Edit text, and this is gonna be A. Click that one, then left click, then right click. This will be B. Left click, right click. This will be C. Need to give these names, so I'm gonna right click on that one and choose change variable name. I'll call this TF underscore A. A is actually an appropriate name when you're talking about the quadratic formula. I'll right click on that, choose edit text, and do a backspace. Then I'll click on this one, right click on it, edit text, do a backspace, enter. Resize those. And need to name this, so it'll be called TF underscore B. Okay, select this one, choose edit text, backspace, enter. Wish you wouldn't do that. Change variable name, TF underscore C. Resize that. In this button, I'm going to right click and choose Edit Text and change it to Calculate. This one I'll right click and do Edit Text. This is going to be answer 1. This one I'll right click, Edit Text. This will be answer 2. This one is a label, so I'm going to right click and change variable name, and I'll call this LB underscore answer 1. LB for label. This one I'll click on, right click, choose variable name, and LB answer 2. I'm getting ready to sneeze. Excuse me. Hopefully that didn't sound too loud. Right click on this one, edit text, do a backspace, enter. Oh, that's pretty interesting. I don't even see where it went to. Let me do a Control Z. Okay, right click, edit text. Let me do a few spaces there. At least I can see it. Right click on this one, choose edit text, a few spaces. Okay. And now we're ready for coding the button. I'm going to right click on calculate, and I'm going to choose events, mouse click. Okay, so up here I need to retrieve the 3 numbers that I input, A, B, and C. So I declare double A, B, C. And A is going to equal to double dot parse double. And then I'm going to have TF underscore A dot get text. That's going to, get text gets a string, so it'll get whatever's in the blank for that TF underscore A. And a double dot parse double converts it to a double and assigns it to A. And B is equal to double dot parse double TF underscore B dot get text. And C is equal to double dot parse double TF underscore C dot get text. Okay, now I don't want to just recreate what I did last time, throwing labels in. So this is where I'm going to talk about value methods. A method that returns a value. So I'm going to have up here, and what in the world happened there? That's interesting. Okay. I'll come up here. I'm going to declare a public. Now, you can do public or private, and it should work either way, because we're just dealing with one class here, so we're not need to call it outside of the class. And I'm going to return double, and I'm going to calculate my positive answer. So calculate positive answer. And I'm going to be passing in double A, double B, and double C. Public is if we were to call it outside the class, we could. Private can only be called within here. This is what type's returned. Before we just put a void in there. Void means nothing's returned. When I put a double in, that means that what I'm going to return is a double, number with decimals. This is the name of it. And these are my parameters. You'll see that intermixed with the term arguments. But those are values we're passing in. So you can think of it that way. Now my quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, close parentheses on the square root, close parentheses on the top, divided by beginning parentheses on the bottom, 2a, that's 2 times a, and then close parentheses. So this is what we're trying to create. And I could put this all in the return statement, but I'm going to use variables. Double answer. And then I'm going to say answer is equal to beginning parentheses. And that negative b, I'm going to put -1 times b plus, now the square root. So I'll do math dot square root. And then I got b squared, so b times b minus 4 times a times c. Close parentheses on the square root, close parentheses on top, divided by beginning parentheses on the bottom, 2 times a. Make that look a little bit nicer. Don't stress, I'm not going to have you program math applications. It'll be physics formulas. Physics formulas is such that you don't have to have a whole lot of math behind it. Just ask for particular values for the variables, and then you return the result. Okay, now I've just calculated answer. I need to return this back to where it's called from. So I'm going to do a return answer. Now down here, I'm going to have answer 1 and answer 2. I'm using extra variables here. You could make this a lot shorter, but I'm going to say answer 1 is equal to, and then I'll call calculate positive answer, and I'll pass in A, B, and C. Now let's take a look at what this does. When you return a value, you have to assign it equal to a value here, or do something meaningful with it. So I'm going to call calculate positive answer. I'm going to pass in A, B, and C, which I brought in here. So it runs this and plugs that in for the A, B, and C up here. These do not have to be named the same as the parameters down here. And then this declare answer, I calculate answer with the plus version right here. And then I return the answer. And when it returns it, it'll replace all of this right side with the value it returns. And then it'll assign it to answer 1. Well, I'm going to copy this. Normally I'd probably type it in, but to save time. And I also need this for negative answer. The difference here is this will be negative b minus. So that'll be a minus. Then I'll say answer 2 is calculate negative answer A, B, and C. This again, just like the other one, will call this method here. It's going to this is a type that's returned, and it has to match the variable type that's right here. Answer is declares a double, and we said we're going to return double. And it's the same principle except for we're using a minus on this one. Now that I got those two, I want to write them out to the label. Now there's nothing exciting about label. You probably never would do a get text against a label, but to set the value of a label, you do a set text. Exact same principle as the text field. So I don't remember what I called them, but I know they start with LB. I'm assuming answer 1 dot set text, and then string dot value of, and answer 1. And LB underscore answer 2 dot set text, string dot value of answer 2. Doesn't like something there. Why is there a red box around it? Maybe it likes it and that red box doesn't actually mean anything. We'll see. So let's run that. I'm going to select the main class. Okay, came up, and I'm going to pick something that I know works, like 1, -5, and 6. And that should give us 2 and 3. And it does. Now, this won't work right if it gets to an imaginary number. Put that in, I get that. Let's see, -b plus or minus square root of b squared. So if I make b kind of big, it should still work. And gives us those values. So this shows you 2 methods of return values to your main program here. Is there any questions on that example?
Not right now.
Okay. Now the beauty of this is when you come up here and you click that, these right here are labels, so you cannot click them to change it. Now if I go back to design here and I click this text field here, you'll see a lot of different properties. These are all items that you could program. Some of these I've never programmed. I was looking for a color. Font. No, that's not color. Foreground color. Let's see if I can change that. I'm just curious. So, LB underscore answer 2 dot foreground. And let's do a dot and see what comes up. If I type F, fire property change. Okay. Let me go to a text box. TF underscore C dot foreground. No. How about dot set? Foreground color. There it is. So set foreground color. If you start understanding how methods work and so forth, then it makes it a lot easier. What we're calling here is we're calling a void method. What we saw in the last chapter. You see here it says void at the end. That means nothing's returned. I call this, it does this change, and then we go on. So set foreground color. And it wants color something. So sometimes you can do a color dot, and it'll pop up. And let me change it to red. So if we run this, we got 1, -5, 6. I click calculate and see how I change it to red. So if you were writing an application where maybe you want to point out mistakes they made, well, besides putting a generic message over here on the side, maybe you want to highlight in red. There's also like a set, and gets and sets is how everything's based upon. There's probably a set background color. So set background. So here's set background. Notice it says void in the far right, and it's passing in color BG. So again, I could do color dot, and I want to make the background color pink. And you see how it changes that. So if you really want it to stand out, then changing the background color is possible too. I wouldn't say you can change every property, but I think you'll find a lot of these properties are such that you can access them through code. Okay. There's our J label. There's something called J slider, and it's pretty straightforward how to use it. Instead of get text, there's a get value. So sometimes you can do color dot RGB to HSB. No. How about instead of color if I do RGB? No. Beginning parentheses. No. Okay, well, I'm not going to be able to guess that. But we want to use a slider for something. Specifically, it's called a J slider. Some of these you have to import. You can't just start using them. And I think J slider is one of them. How you import it, you come up here. And you notice it went ahead and put the java.awt.color when I use color. So input java.swing is where you'll find this. And J slider. Doesn't like something. Java X. Yeah, Java X swing dot J slider. AWT was the old technology. Swing is what they changed it to. But they've kept the AWT out there for compatibility's sake, people who are used to programming with AWT. If you look at your design, over here, these are swing controls I'm using. But there's an AWT down here. And you're going to find that many of those items are the same. Label, button, text field, text area, checkbox, choices, I think, named something different. List, scroll bar, scroll pane. So you can use those if you want. It's been so long since I've used those, I don't think I could. I'd have to fumble around with them. Okay, so let me do a new project. So let me close this project. Save all. I quit opening new ones. New project. I mean, quit opening new ones without closing the old ones. And click finish. Maybe. Maybe I hit cancel instead. Java application. Okay, Maven project 4. Oh, it's down to bottom. So is the other one. Okay, let me close that. Close project. There we go. It's having a little trouble focusing there. I have an Australian Shepherd, and she came in right then and kept hitting my arm. So I couldn't type. Couldn't focus. New. She wants some attention, I guess. Okay, so new J-frame form. And click finish. Okay. Now, I said the one we're looking at now is J slider. I don't really like J slider, but I wanted to show it. I'm going to show all of this so you see how to program a GUI. Your imagination is what sees the potential possibilities for each one of these. Here's J slider. So I'll drop it over here. And let's run our code. Now, what a J slider is you can sit there and slide it back and forth. You do this to set values. So I'm going to have a JText field. So drop that on there. And I'm going to try something. Usually I put a button behind this, but I'm going to try to see if I can program this being changed. And this being changed is going to update my JText field. So let's see how successful I am. First off, I got this is a name, JSlider1. Maybe I want to give it a name. So right click, change variable name. I don't really use these, so I don't know. I'll just say JSlide underscore num1. Now I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to choose events, and I'm looking for something like onChanged. Change, state change, no, component, container, focus, hierarchy, input method. Property change. Okay, I may have to go back to a button. Mouse wheel moved. Mouse motion. Mouse. Mouse clicked would be if I clicked it. Mouse entered is where my mouse, I click and hold down. Mouse exit is when I lit up, I believe. No, that's when my mouse goes over it. Mouse press and mouse release. Mouse release is the one I think I want. We'll see. Like I say, I never have done this. As part of experimenting as a programmer, you should be open to experimenting and trying different things. Okay, mouse released. Now I need to retrieve the value that the JSlider has. JSlider returns, I believe, an integer. So I need to import it, for one thing, even though I think it will automatically put it there. Import javax swing.jslider. Okay, so let's come down here, and I'll say val is equal to, and I forget what I called it, slide underscore num1, I think, dot, and there's should be a get value, and it does return an integer. This get value is a method that returns a value. So this is what this entire chapter is about. That returns the integer. Whatever this is, get value is adjusting, returns a Boolean. Whatever this is, get verify input when focused target, returns a Boolean. As a programmer, don't sit there and try to understand every one of these. Get visible rectangle, returns a rectangle. That's interesting. But I want get value. Is that all I need? Looks like it. No red squigglies. Now I want to write that value out to my text field. So I didn't name it, I don't think. So come over here, right click on this. I'll say change variable name, and I'll call this tf underscore num1. Go back to my source, tf underscore num1, and it's set text because text fields are strings. I don't think it'd have a set value. Nope. So set text. Now I need to pass in a string to it, and val is an integer. So I'm going to do a string dot value of, and I'll pass in val. So mouse released. Okay, so let's run this. Come over here, I'm going to click this and move it, and then lit up. 65, lit up, it's 80, 36. So each time I lit up on my mouse, it updates my text field. Now, probably what would be best is as this is moving, it would update my text field. That's what would be perfect. So let's see if I can go back and figure out what in the world I need to choose for that. Let's see, events. Let me go back to mouse and think about this. Mouse clicked. Mouse press is when I hold down on the button. Mouse release is when I lit up. Mouse clicked is probably just let me go to mouse clicked. Now I want to call it the same code. And again, this is going back and demonstrating some of the items of this section. Except for this is going to be a separate method, and I don't need to return anything. So I'm going to have a void, and I'll say adjust slider. And so I can take this bit of code right here, and I can put it in this method I just created. Now, by putting it in that code, I can call it from multiple places. That's a true power of methods. So adjust slider, like there. I can also call it from here. Adjust slider. I suppose if I put it in enough places, I'll eventually get it to work. So if I run that, let me click and hold down. And I'm moving it, and it's not updating. That's not good. So obviously this mouse clicked isn't what I thought it was. Let's see, event. Let's see what else there is. Mouse wheel, property change. That sure seems possible. Because that implies a property's been changed. Well, let me call it adjust slider. That's interesting. It was already 50, but that isn't doing it. One last one, then I'll give up, and I'll go on to the next topic. But this is showing you how you the benefit of having one method. You can call it from however many places. The other one that kind of comes to mind. Change state changed. Adjust slider. Okay, so if I click and hold down, there it is. I got lucky. But that's a state change. And that's working like I'd want. So if I was going to use this, which I don't like it, then I could use the state change to automatically have you know when to stop. Anyway, that's the J slider. Now there's a J spinner, which is very similar to this. J spinner and this is kind of strange. It returns an object, and I don't understand that. Why it doesn't return an integer, I don't know. But I struggle with that because I was creating this PowerPoint earlier, and I naturally assumed it would just be value, and it isn't. You have to do that toString on it. Okay, so let me close this. And let me close all projects. There we go. And do a new project, Java with Maven, Java application, and leave it that name. Right click on this, choose new, JFrame form, leave it to whatever it is. And what in the world am I doing? JSpinner. Okay, so JSpinner. And make that bigger so you can see it. Now, if I run it, select main class, then this will allow me to change that. And if I made it bigger, you can actually see that's 10 or 11 or something like that, and I don't know what it is. So let me make that bigger. There we go. And you see it increasing like that. You can also come in over here and type in a value, so 100. So it gives you a benefit of doing these if you want, or you can type in a number. I think you can lock it down so that you can't type in a number, where you're controlling everything. Okay, so now that I know which one fixed it before, let me throw a text field on there again. I'll right click on this and choose change variable name, and I'll call this TF underscore num1. And I'll program this one on state change, I think it was. I don't have memory, but let's see. State changed, yeah. And then up here, I need to use JSpinner, and so I need to import it in. So import Java x.swing JSpinner. And come down here. And let me see. int. I'm going to write it out to my text field. So tf underscore num1 dot set text. And then my JSpinner. I didn't give it a name. Right click on this, change variable name. I'll call it JSpin underscore num1. And come over here, JSpin underscore num1 dot get value. Now notice get value here returns something that's called an object, which is kind of a generic. We don't know what it is, integer, a float, a double, a string, but just returns object. That's why after I do get value, I have to do a dot to string, and that'll convert it to a string. So again, this gets the object, that converts it to a string, and then the set text sets the tf underscore num1. So if I come over here and start changing this, you see it gets that. Now you're saying, well, why put it over there when it's right here? Exactly. I'm just showing how you work with it. If you want to retrieve it to put it into an integer, int num1 equals 2. Now, when I do a JSpin underscore num1 dot get value, this is going to return an object. So I'll get a little red squiggly. I need to convert it to an integer, and I think I can do an integer dot, we'll see if this works, parse int. This is another one of them I don't use. And that didn't work. So let's try to convert it to a string. To string. Seems weird. This gets an object, this converts it to a string, and then this converts it to an integer, which I then assign to this. So then num1, I could do a calculation with it. Same principle holds true if you want to assign it to a double. You have double d1 equals double dot parse double, and then all of this, and that's how you convert it to a double. Now, since it doesn't allow decimals, double doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But you could bring this in. Now, let's say I wanted to program something a little bit more exciting here. I want to program like force. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. And I'm going to use these spinners just so I can learn. So I'll drop another JSpinner on there. Okay. And remember what I made the other one, but let me just make it something. 18. And make it bigger like that. This one I called, what did I call that? J spin num1. I'm going to right click on this one and I'll change the variable name to J spin num2. J spin num1, J spin num2. Okay. And so when I change those, then I'll have a button. And since I'm getting ready to run out of time, I'll make this kind of quick and dirty. And text field where I drop it. Click this button. It'll take the values from there and figure mass. This is, for example, force equals mass times acceleration. This is mass. This is acceleration. Actually, let me take time to put the labels on there. There we go. Okay, so I click this one, right click it, change edit text. This is mass. Click this one, right click it, edit text. This is acceleration. Right click this one, edit text. This will be force. And give this one a name. And TF underscore force. Okay, so I come over here and I guess I can use that as a pattern. Double. And I'll call this mass because that's what the first one is. Double dot parse double. And all that's fine. And then double acceleration, and I'll shorten it. Double dot parse double. J, can't see. I think it's that. I know I named it the same as the other one. Get value dot toString, like that. Okay, now since I am in the section where I want to use methods that return something, I'm going to come up here and I'll declare public. I'm going to return a double, and I'm calculating force, and I'm passing in not passing in anything. No, I'm passing in those. So passing in double mass, double acceleration. Now just to show you, you don't have to name them the same. Notice that this is mass ACC. This is spelled differently. They do not have to be named the same. I get in a bad habit of naming them the same on every program. Okay, so I'm bringing those in. Now I'm going to calculate force. So I'm going to declare force. And I'll say force is equal to mass times acceleration. And then I'll do a return on force. Now again, this is the type it's returned. So this is going to return something of double. And so down here I have to call it. So my answer, well, let me just call it force, is going to equal to calculate force, and I'm passing in mass, and I'm passing in acceleration. Now you might look at that and say, well, that's great. You created 3 lines of code up there, method, when you could have just done mass times acceleration down here. Well, that's true. But I just wanted to show you an example of creating a separate method like that. On the I'll create an assignment, and 2 assignments actually, and both of them will be to pick a physics formula and to have a separate method that returns a value. And also I want you to experiment, and I want you to play with these like spinners and different things like that. Okay, now if I look at this, what do I need to do? Set text. I now got a double, so I'm going to do a string.value of. to convert force to a string. And what am I doing wrong? I didn't call it num1, I called it force. Does that make sense in what methods of return values do?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me run that. And again, though the spinners probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense since you can't put decimals in. And these, I'm assuming, can have decimals. 7 times 8 should give us 56. And I got something wrong. I didn't. What did I do wrong? Oh, I put it in a state changed. I didn't put it in the button. Okay. Back up. Slow down. Come down here. Events. Mouse. Mouse clicked. This is where I meant to put it. Why won't it let me do enter? That's weird. Take all this, move it down to here. Fix my spacing. There we go. And run that. Okay, so that should give us 15, and it does. Now, one thing I don't remember, and I'm going to try it here to see if it breaks my entire program. I don't need this method here anymore. It doesn't hurt for it to be there. If I never call it, it doesn't, it doesn't really consume anything. But let me highlight it and press delete. And then let me delete it. Let me right click on it and see if I can delete it. No. Well, let me go back to design, go to whichever one that's in, choose events, change, and can I? No, can't delete it there. I don't think I remember how to delete that. Probably if I come over here to events, maybe. And over here in events, you can see the same thing, state change. So let me delete it there. None. Okay, now let's see if it still runs. And it still runs. Okay, so that's how you delete it. Come over here and just delete the name, looks like. The question is the code still there? And the code is gone. Some packages do not handle you just coming in here and deleting it directly gracefully. It gives you all kinds of errors. But it appears like Java does that well, at least this version. Now, the last two is J checkbox and J radio button. And let me start a new one here, new project. Java application, and click finish. And I'm going to right click on this and choose new JFrame form. And my goal here is just to demonstrate these. So this may not make a whole lot of sense. I'm going to draw up a text field on here. This is going to be the amount of the order. Now, for the radio button, you have to drop on a button group. So I click this button group and drag and drop it on here. And when you drag and drop it, nothing happens. But if you look over here on the navigator, you'll see a button group 1. We'll come back to that. And then I'll drop on 2 radio buttons. Now, radio button is such when I click one, it should unclick the other. But it only works that way if you put them in the same button group. That's why I created this button group 1. So if I click this and I come over to my properties over here, you see button group here is none, and I do the drop down, I can choose button group 1. If I choose this one, come over here, choose button group 1. Now when I run this, it'll work like a radio button should. I click that, and then I click this and unchecks that. I click this and unchecks that. Now this maybe is going to be to indicate shipping. So I right click on this, choose edit text, and you can choose next day for shipping, and that's $20. I'm going to right click on this one and choose edit text, and I'll say whenever we want. So they'll deliver it whenever they want, and they'll only charge you $5 for that. So if you're not in a hurry, I guess. So I'm gonna put a value in here. I'll pick the shipping method I want, and checkbox. What this is for is an optional. I'll drop another checkbox on here. This one I'll right click on, say edit text, and I can choose insurance, and then that'll add on $10. This one I can choose what can I choose here? Notification, to be notified when it gets delivered, and this will be free. So then I'll have a button here and a new text box, text field. Okay, so this will be our first value. I'll right click on this, say change variable name, TF order cost. And this will be right click on this, choose edit or right click on that and choose change variable name, and I'll call this TF order amount. Order amount is what happens after I add on all these charges. Now I'm not going to change the names of these. This one's J radio button 1. This is J radio button 2. In theory, I would. Well, let me do it. Maybe it'd be easier. This would be a radio button. I'll right click on that, change variable name. I'll call this RB for radio button. Next day. This one I'll right click on and change variable name. I'll call it RB whenever. My worry about changing names I wouldn't remember when I get to the code. This one I'll right click on, choose change variable name. This is a checkbox, so I'll do C box, insurance. And right click on this one, choose variable name, C box, notified. And I'll click up here, draw a rectangle, make everything a little bit bigger. Should have done that earlier. It's good enough. Okay, so now I need to program the button, so I'll right click on that and say events, mouse click. And up here, I'm going to bring in the order cost. So order cost is going to equal to double dot parse double, called it something, TF order cost dot set text, get text. I don't know if I need to do a dot toString or not. Let's try that. Nope, that worked. Now, I brought that in. If they check next day, I want to add $20. So how you check a radio button, you say if RB next day dot, what is it? Is selected? Is selected. So if you say is selected, then if they select it, then it'll do this. So then I'll say order cost is equal to order cost plus $20. Now if they select whenever we want, then I want to add $5. So if RB whenever dot is selected, then order cost is equal to order cost plus $5. If they select insurance, if what I call it, CBox checkbox, yeah, CBox dot insurance, no, underscore insurance dot is selected, then order cost is going to equal to order cost plus no memory, $10. Okay, now the last one I don't need to actually program because it's free, which means it'll add nothing on to my final cost. Now this one was called TF underscore order amount. So I've done all that calculation. I want to write out the amount to the TF underscore order amount dot set text string dot value of and order cost. So now if I run this, radio buttons and checkboxes are very popular because they kind of reduce errors. You can't screw them up from a user standpoint. My order is $100. Now, if I click J button 1 now, it says $100. If I click next day, it now is $120 because I added $20 onto it. If I instead change it to whenever we want, click that, it'll be $105. If I add insurance, that'll add another $10 to it, so it should be $115. So again, it makes it a little bit more robust, where you won't have errors. Does that make sense on when you'd use a radio button versus a checkbox?
Yeah.
Yeah. Checkboxes, you can select all of them. Radio button, you can only choose one. You just have to make sure they're part of the same button group. And I show that here. Just is selected, and this is the same way, is selected. Now I'm picking these on purpose because some of these have similar properties to them. We're going to be looking at combo box and list, but those do not, and those are almost exactly alike. But those have nothing to do with the ones we just looked at. So those are completely different in how you program them. And then some of these other ones, I didn't figure I'd have time to get to tonight, which is correct. But we'll be covering all of these. We'll learn how to open files from. We'll learn how to open files from a application, so you can open up like a CSV file and have it go through and total sales or whatever wherever you want to do. Is there any questions on any of that?
Not right now.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and stop the video there. Assuming I know how to stop the video.